Lexi's Leukemia Warrior channel. We are filming our second video of Childhood Cancer Awareness Month as we go gold in September. Lexi will be joining me at the end of the video. She hasn't been feeling good the last couple weeks off and on. She's been just a little bit more tired and wants to lay around a little bit more. I think she's just getting to the end of her treatment. She finishes in October and her body is just worn out. So we're giving her a bit of a rest, and then she told me when it was time for the end of the video that she wanted to come and be at the end of the video so she didn't have to sit here for the whole thing. So today I wanted to talk to you about medicine. Last time it was all about ports, and this time it's all about meds. And the sad thing is that childhood cancer just doesn't get the same amount of research and funding. As I keep hammering home, you get 4% of the government's budget for research and funding, so you run into issues where there aren't a lot of new medications for childhood cancers. And the reality is that in the last 6 years, there have been over 77 new drugs created and manufactured for adult cancers. And the inverse of that, if you flip those numbers, in the last 77 years, there have only been 6 new cancers or new drugs created for childhood cancer. That is very sobering. Our kids deserve more than that, because the reality is that the drugs that they're using are adult chemotherapies. Lexi's leukemia treatment uses chemotherapies, the exact same ones that they were using 50 years ago when they first started trying to get a protocol together for treating leukemia. 50 years have gone by. They are using the same chemotherapy drugs, just in a different order and different combinations, and for longer periods of time. With leukemia, they discovered that they could use all the drugs that it takes and they could get kids into remission in a month. But then they just thought they were done. They had to continuously do more trials and figure out what was going on, because then they would stop the treatment and then the cancer would just come right back in their system. And then each time that you relapse and each time that it comes back, it becomes more resistant to all the various different medications that you've thrown at it. So we are really thankful that there were parents who enrolled their children in those trials many years ago so that they could figure out that you need the first 6 to 8 months of intensive treatment weekly to blast away at every cell. And then even beyond that, you need another 2 years of maintenance chemotherapy every day at home to suppress the immune system to keep it from coming back. And that's the best chance you have at preventing relapse. Had there not been parents and children willing to go through that, and they still are, there's trials opening every day. Are there enough? No, but they are. And we're always looking to find the best way to treat something with the least amount of side effects, because that is what I want to talk about today. Side effects from all the medications. It is unfortunate, but the number one side effect of most chemotherapies, depending upon which kind it is it's an immune suppressant. It suppresses your immune system, which makes you susceptible to just picking up any type of infection, virus, germ. So unfortunately, Lexi has to take a monthly antibiotic that covers a specific fungal infection that could occur in her lungs. That's very easily picked up by somebody, especially a child with a suppressed immune system, a fungal lung infection, and it can be deadly. So right off the bat, they're already giving you prophylactic antibiotics to try to prevent your system from catching something when it's low. And like I said the other day, when I talk about Lexi's counts being good, That's good for a child with cancer. That's not good for a normal child. Like, where her immune system is suppressed to in maintenance is between 500 and 1500 for her absolute neutrophil count. And a child would be much higher than that, someone who's not on chemotherapy. So quite honestly, she lives with a suppressed immune system all the time. And even after she finishes her treatment in October, it's going to take a while for her immune system to bounce back. It can take upwards of a year or more to finally get back on track, to finally detox your body and get to a point where your immune system is functioning better. And even then, she could always just have a low immune system for the rest of her life, like, you know, always slightly more susceptible to catching something because it had been knocked down for so long. So if we go through just the meds that Lexi uses in her treatment, the very first thing they give you as soon as you start treatment is high doses of steroids for a month. And let me throw the picture up there that shows Lexi's weight gain. Oh my goodness. We did not recognize our child. And it made me really sad. You know, you love your daughter no matter what. But in the beginning, you look at all that weight gain and you go, oh my goodness, where is my daughter? Like, what happened? Like, will she ever look, you know, I don't want to say normal, but you know what I mean? Like, will she ever go back to looking the way she did before? And it was scary, very scary. She was constantly eating. She was craving food all the time. I cannot tell you how many midnight runs we made for Happy Meals. We had to start buying in bulk and then give her the Happy Meal out of the fridge. It was crazy. She had bone pain and she had joint pain and she was bloated. And all the food and all the meds made her constipated. Induction was so rough. The moodiness, the hangriness. I remember at one point we were in our hospital room and we were taking turns hiding out in the bathroom because Lexi couldn't eat anything. It was our day 29 bone marrow biopsy, like to find out whether or not she'd made it into remission. And it was something we had to get admitted for into a regular room. It was like an overnight stay, and they take you down and do the bone marrow biopsy, and then you get the results. Well, Lexi was not having it. You know, by the end of a month, you're huge, you're bloated, and you're super duper hungry. And even if she was the first bone marrow biopsy of the day, she still couldn't eat and she didn't sleep. It caused insomnia. So unfortunately, she was angry and she was crying and she was just hollering out any food that you could imagine. Bananas. She doesn't even eat bananas. She doesn't like bananas. She was just hollering out all kinds of food. Banana, lettuce, and then of course her staples, Happy Meal, yogurt, pasta, bread. We couldn't give her any of it. We kept having to say, no, we'll give it to you later. Finally, the nurse hooked her up to a bag of fluids because you can have fluids even though you're going to go under general anesthesia because it's being absorbed. You just can't have anything by mouth. That's what NPO stands for, nothing by mouth. And she was hoping that just giving her fluids would help take the edge off. It didn't really do much, but gosh, they tried. It was awful. Awful. I was never more thankful when we were able to stop the steroids for that month. Oh my goodness. Another medicine that she takes, this one's actually a chemotherapy drug. It's called vincristine. It's actually a staple in a lot of childhood cancers. Vincristine is used through a lot of them, and it's good at tumor suppression, and it's good for blood cancers. So right away, within the first week, she'd already had a vincristine infusion. Side effects from vincristine can include jaw pain, hoarseness in your voice. Some kids even get paralysis of their vocal cords temporarily, and then you either have to stop the vincristine or back off on the dose. You can get neuropathy in your extremities, and you can get constipation, severe constipation. Lexi had most of those. She never got the vocal cord paralysis, but she did get the severe constipation. She got neuropathy in her feet. She started toe walking. She had to go to physical therapy, and she also had to take a medication called gabapentin in order to combat the pain in her legs and feet. It was her ankles, her feet were tight, her lower legs, like, you get that tingling, like pinprick feeling. The sad thing is, in fall of 2019, there ended up being a huge vincristine shortage because the pharmaceutical manufacturer that makes the generic for vincristine was Teva Pharmaceuticals. And they quietly had decided to do their own research and look at the market, and they decided that since it wasn't making them a lot of money and there didn't seem to be a market for the generic, then they didn't need to bother to manufacture vincristine anymore, and that left it down to one major pharmaceutical company that was going to manufacture the vincristine. So this pharmaceutical company tried to ramp up production knowing that Teva was going off the market, and then, of course, what happens when you try to go too fast? You run into issues. And that can happen even if you're not going too fast. What if you accidentally have an accident at your factory or something causes a delay in production? Like right now, we're having in the middle of a pandemic. You might get slowed down. And it caused a major shortage across the entire U.S. blanket of vincristine. And it came down to a point where oncologists at hospitals had to make the decision who was getting vincristine and who wasn't. I thank God every day that we go to a nationally ranked children's hospital that is ranked in all 10 specialties by U.S. News and World Report. They were on top of their ordering. They had a supply. They did not have to ration their vincristine. Unfortunately, I had friends at other hospitals who were in a dire situation. Their hospital basically said, look, we've had to prioritize who needs the vincristine the most, and for those kids that are in the frontline treatment, the hardest portion of treatment, where you're still blasting away at all the cells, you're not in maintenance yet, those kids need the vincristine. And yes, we know you need vincristine in maintenance, but we don't have it to give you right now. So if we can make it up later on, when we get it back, we will. Otherwise, unfortunately, we have had to make the tough decision to omit vincristine from your protocol because we don't have it to give, and there's no other chemotherapy drug like it that does what it does for your protocol. I cannot imagine being the parent of a child who is in maintenance on their treatment plan and is set to finish and missed doses of vincristine. And then in the back of that mind, that seed is always planted. My kid missed chemotherapy. Will they relapse? And for the gut-wrenching, god-awful decision that an oncologist had to make about who they give this drug to, and are they potentially causing a child to ultimately relapse and die. Needless to say, you probably saw me post about it on my social media, but all of us in the childhood cancer world were upset and extremely angry. It wasn't just leukemia. A lot of the sarcomas are treated by vincristine, even neuroblastomas, all of them. It is a staple in almost every single type of childhood cancer. And a pharmaceutical company is going to say they did their research and you're just not going to make the drug anymore, this life-saving drug for kids you know better? Boy, hell hath no fury like cancer warrior families, because I'll tell you what, we mobilized the people that lived in Philadelphia near where Teva's U.S. headquarters were staged a sit-in. They went and sat in their lobby, and those of us across the U.S. who could not get ourselves to Philadelphia, the phone numbers were made available, and I was one of them. We called every day for a week straight. We barraged their phone lines so bad they had to turn them off because they couldn't answer the phones fast enough, and it went straight to voicemail until their voicemail boxes were full of angry mothers and fathers like us calling and saying, fix this now. Start back up your production now. Kids are going to die because you're greedy and you're putting profits over children. Within a month of us mobilizing the Cancer Warrior Family Army, I am happy to say that Teva grew a conscience, or better yet, they did not like the media coverage that it was starting to get locally and then nationally. When I saw the news go national, that's when I realized Teva was in it deep. Because tell the general public that you're going to stop making a drug for children's cancer. And now oncology departments are being interviewed on the TV screen telling and pleading with people saying, I have to choose who to give this to. I hope something like that never happens again. But unfortunately, that is the reality of childhood cancer. These kids are the bottom of the barrel. It's like they're an afterthought. I can't tell you how many times I have struggled with our insurance company to make sure that they can pay for liquid medication because some of the pills are just too big for Lexi to swallow. She's 3. She's 4. I was fighting it when she was 3, and now I'm fighting it still when she's 4. Last summer when she had the kidney stone surgery, I went round and round with them. It was like over $500 for this liquid medication. But they said if I could find it in pill form, that they would cover it. Well, we searched long and hard, and once again, thanks to my awesome cousin who's a pharmacist, we were able to find the pills. And my oncology team was super awesome between my cousin and the pharmacy at Children's and my oncology team, my nurse coordinator. They got it taken care of for me, and they called it in to my local pharmacy. And I went there to pick it up, and imagine my surprise when they said it was $900. $900 for a set of pills for a month? Really? So I called my insurance company back, and I said, well, you must be mistaken because you told me that you would cover pills. Oh, well, those aren't the right kind of pills. We can only cover the kind of pills like you would get from an adult in an actual bottle, not pills that come in like a little blister pack. That's not the same. So basically, they were just telling me that they don't like to cover medications for kids because it's too expensive to make a compound liquid medication, but to just form up a pill. It's so easy. Well, can't she swallow pills, they said. She's 3. I'm doing good to get her to swallow the tiny Dex pills at this point. She's 3, and not every medication is meant to be or should be crushed up. There's, a time and place for that, and not all of them are supposed to be like that. I never did get anywhere with the insurance company, but some kind anonymous Good Samaritan heard about my story via social media and paid for our medication that night. I could not believe it when Trees, the pharmacy tech who I used to work with, so I know her quite well, called me stunned and said, Jenna, I just want to let you know that the medication has been paid for Lexi. I was like, what? She was like, someone just came up here and wished to remain anonymous, and they paid for Lexi's medication, all $900. Don't worry about it. I know Brian's working tonight, so when he gets off his shift, just have him swing by the pharmacy and pick this up. I was crying. But the reality is, it shouldn't be that hard. It should not be that hard for kids to get medication. And it's not cheap. Even the chemotherapy is expensive. One tiny bag of a medication that Lexi's had like 2 or 3 times throughout treatment. It's a really nasty, awful chemotherapy called PEG asparaginase. It's the chemotherapy that has the highest chance for side effects, like anaphylaxis. It can also cause pancreatitis and VOD, which is a liver issue that can be serious and life-threatening. The issue is, PEG asparaginase, you'll never guess what it's made from. E. coli. PEG asparaginase is made from a line of E. coli cells. E. coli, like the food poisoning. It's awful. One tiny bag, just the bag, not talking about the fees for administering it and the hospital fees. I'm just talking straight up the bag of chemotherapy. Cost $70,000. Now, I know I complain about insurance for some stuff, but there are times where I am grateful and thankful that insurance covers most of Lexi's treatment. We still pay a lot out of pocket, but thank God we did not have to pay $70,000 for that chemo, and that insurance covered most of it. But that's a lot. Lexi also takes methotrexate. She can get it by IV. She can get it through her port. She gets it in her spinal fluid, and she can also take it orally. Methotrexate is quite different from vincristine because it has a lifetime toxicity, and it can be used in your spinal fluid. Vincristine cannot be used in your spinal fluid, and if they put vincristine into your spinal fluid, unfortunately you will die, because vincristine is a paralytic. As you know, it can cause the paralysis of the vocal cords and other things. And so if they inject that into your spinal fluid, basically what it does is it paralyzes all of your organs and they stop functioning and you would die, because it tells your brain to stop everything and paralyze it all. So then they can't breathe anymore because it paralyzed everything. Which is why they make vincristine special, so it's never made in a vial. It's always made in a tiny little bag. Unfortunately, I have heard of a couple of stories from families in my cancer group from a country that's maybe not as developed, and there was a mistake made, and their child got injected with vincristine instead of methotrexate for a routine lumbar puncture chemo, and they died. Thankfully, in the U.S., I've never heard of that happening here, and they double and triple check things, and our hospital's awesome. But methotrexate is one of those chemos that you can have a lot. It's also used for rheumatoid arthritis and other things, but it has a lifetime toxicity cap. As in, you can only have so much methotrexate throughout your lifetime before it would start affecting you negatively. It can cause seizures and neurological issues, especially if it's been injected into your spinal fluid, and it can cause rashes. There for a while, we thought Lexi had hand, foot, and mouth disease. It would not go away for over 2 months, and we had been keeping Lexi away from everyone and everything. This was way pre-pandemic. And she was isolated when she would go to clinic because we didn't want to spread it to anyone else. We finally put 2 and 2 together and realized that every time she took her weekly methotrexate, when I thought it was finally starting to go away, it would come back and get worse. It was the methotrexate causing the rash. Eventually, we were able to mostly clear up the rash. It comes and goes, but it does sometimes come back around her weekly dosage. Maybe a little on her face, sometimes on her feet. But for the most part, we've kept it at bay for now. One of the other nasty chemos that she takes is called doxorubicin. She took that towards the end of her frontline treatment before she started maintenance. They call it the Red Devil because it's red. Any type of doxo or donorubicin is going to be red. It can be hard on your heart, so she had to have another heart echo to make sure that her heart was still doing good. And then it caused her to lose her hair. I'd heard from my fellow cancer parents that if you hadn't lost your hair in the beginning, it's usually the doxorubicin that makes you lose it. Well, Lexi did lose her hair in the beginning. It was just weak and brittle, and she kept twirling it, and it kept falling out, so we had to shave it. With the doxorubicin, her hair had finally started to grow back, and it was still, it wasn't like long, it was still short, but it was there and you could see it. And everyone said the 3rd dose of doxorubicin, about a week after that, it did her in. Well, she got doxorubicin on a Tuesday, and then that weekend, she started getting huge bald patches in the back of her head, and her hair was actually falling out in thick clumps. And I remember that it was just getting so annoying for her because it was just shedding everywhere. And it was getting in her food because I was just letting her hold on to what little hair she had left. Finally, I looked at her and I said one day, I can see that you are miserable. Your hair is getting everywhere. And I can tell that it's bothering you. And I know that you don't want to have to deal with that. Do you want me just to use the clippers, the shears, and just trim the rest of it off? It won't take me that long because you don't have much left, sweetie. So we went and looked in the mirror, and she looked at it, and she saw that it was almost gone. And she said, yes, Mommy, and then can I take a bath and wash all the hair off? And I said, yes. So Brian was at work. I didn't even have time to consult with him because, normally we would make these types of decisions together. But it was just, she was miserable. So I sat her in the bathroom, and for the second time, I shaved my daughter's head. It was at least easier the second time. And she kind of understood the second time what was going on. And the second time, it really went to clean bald. Even the places where I shaved, where there was a tiny bit of stubble, within a day, those were gone, and that had fallen out too. And it took a good 2 or 3 months before her hair started growing back in again. In the meantime, we were sent all kinds of cute hats and wraps, and the church knitted some things for us. And we were really thankful for our community who just rallied around her. The other 3 chemos that she took, 2 of them were in her treatment towards the end of frontline. Cyclophosphamide can also be hard on your heart and other organs. And it can cause severe nausea. It's a one-time dose that she got of that. And then they had to give her double doses of anti-nausea medication in order to make sure that she wasn't going to throw up, because it just causes tons of nausea. She also took something called thioguanine at home, which is called 6-TG, during the end of her frontline treatment. And then when she was all done with that, she takes mercaptopurine every day, or 6-MP as we call it, purple, because it looks grayish purple. She takes that liquid every day at home, and then every Wednesday she takes methotrexate. The mercaptopurine can cause blood sugar issues, as can the steroids, actually. What most people don't realize is that sometimes kids who take steroids or the mercaptopurine can actually have such bad blood sugar issues that they actually have to take insulin to correct things, because it can cause super high blood sugars, unfortunately. And I've known a few kids who, after treatment, ended up not dropping all the blood sugar issues and ended up being a type 1 diabetic post-treatment, because their pancreas just wasn't functioning properly anymore after having all the steroids and the other medication. Thankfully, we've never had to deal with that, but the main thing mercaptopurine does is suppress your immune system, and we have dealt with her counts crashing and all kinds of things. So I just think that it's worth noting that even with all these chemotherapies that are out there, there are still some cancers that do not have a cure between chemotherapy and radiation. The biggest one that I can think of in childhood cancer is diffuse intrinsic pontine glioma, or DIPG. It's a form of brain cancer that wraps around your brainstem, and therefore it's inoperable because it's too risky to try to do surgery, because it could kill you, because it's right there at the base of your cerebellum where your brainstem is. So basically, after trials and trials and trials and not getting anywhere, the best option they have is to treat you with high doses of steroids and do radiation. Radiation can cause some of the tumor to shrink, and you might gain some of your motor functions back, because your brainstem is what controls your motor functions. So you might get your vision back, or get partial use of your extremities back or something. And they go through what's called a honeymoon phase, where they're back to their sort of normal self. And then it gets to a point where either you can't have any more radiation because you've hit your max, or the radiation is no longer working and the tumor is growing too aggressively. So, unfortunately, there is no cure. DIPG is a death sentence. if your child gets that, it's not a matter of if they will die. It's a matter of when. This is why we are begging and pleading for more funding and more research. Before I go get Lexi so I can ask her a few questions here for the end of the video, I wanted to highlight 2 organizations that are nationally known and recognized, and they are the main 2 organizations that fund childhood cancer research. The first one is the St. Baldricks Foundation. They're really awesome at providing resources for families. When we first went inpatient, we got a binder from St. Baldricks that had information all about cancer and the different procedures and all about children's policies, and I call it our cancer Bible. You'll see a lot of people do fundraisers for St. Baldricks in the spring, especially where they shave their head and they raise money. St. Baldricks directly funds grants for research for trials. And the other one is Alex's Lemonade Stand, in honor of a little girl who lost her fight. And it is nationally recognized. And the idea was brought about when she made her own lemonade stand for childhood cancer research. And she raised over $1,000, and she realized, hey, this is a thing. So when she died, in her memory, her parents kept it alive, and it's going strong. And right now they're doing the 1,000,000 Mile. It's like a walk, run, cycle type thing, and you check in online, and you raise money for every mile that you get to. And all of the money for both of these organizations is donated directly to cancer research and funding for kids. Specifically just for kids. So that's very important. So I will leave all their information at the end of this video, as well as links to their pages in the description below. If you feel so led, you could maybe, when the pandemic is over, your kids could host their own lemonade stand. Or maybe you feel like you might want to shave your head for St. Baldricks. Let me go get Lexi, and I've got a couple of questions I want to ask her. All right, and we're back, and I've got Lexi here with us. Lexi is excited to be in the end of the video, and I told her we were gonna talk about taking medicine. So what does it feel like when they put the medicine through your tubie?
It feels like it's kind of scary, but I still like to take my good medicine.
It's still kind of scary, but you don't mind it because you know you have to take the good medicine, don't you?
Yeah, and the bad medicine.
And the bad medicine, the stuff that doesn't taste good. What does it feel like whenever you have to take the sleepy time medicine, when you get put to sleep and take your big nap?
I feel kind of sleepy, but I don't mind.
You feel kind of sleepy, but you don't mind it? Well, that's good.
Yeah.
What about taking your medicine at home? Do you like purple?
No.
Do you like yellow?
No.
That's what we call methotrexate. You don't like purple or yellow? What about the little steroid pills that you have to take and swallow?
It's kind of good.
Yeah. Are you going to be glad when your medicine's all done and you don't have to take your medicine anymore? You'll be excited?
Yeah, that's an exciting part.
Now, at the beginning, we used to have to give you prizes to bribe you to take your medicine, didn't we?
Yeah.
But we don't have to do that anymore, do we? Because you're a big girl.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you want to tell everybody? What should they do?
They should subscribe and hit the bell if you want to see more Leukemia videos.
That's right. Subscribe and tell all your friends. How many subscribers is it you want to get to?
1,000
You want to get to 1,000 subscribers. That's a lot.
Yeah, I know.
It is. But you know what? If everyone tells their friends to subscribe too, then we might get some more subscribers, right?
Yeah.
And then the more awareness we can raise for cancer for kids. So as she said, if you'd like to see more of our videos, please hit the subscribe button, like this video, give it a big thumbs up, and hit that bell button so you'll be notified every time we post a new video. And don't forget to follow us on our other social medias. If you have an Instagram, we're at Lexi's Leukemia, all lowercase. And if you have a Twitter, we're also at Lexi's Leukemia, all lowercase. And the Facebook group that you can join is Lexi's Leukemia Warriors.